Thank you, and welcome to Tax Reform for the Payroll Professional. So first, let's review what we're going to talk about today. So first, we're going to really understand tax reform, understand what it is, and the details around it. Then we're going to understand where the changes occurred. So we're going to start with basic federal withholding. So, how did basic federal withholding get changed, and what do we need to review there? We're going to talk about supplemental taxation. The rate in which you do supplemental taxation has changed. We're going to talk about that. Backup withholding. So what do you need to know about backup withholding and changes there? If you have any international employees and you are doing taxation for non-resident aliens, what do you need to know about that? We're going to talk about changes to the Form W-4. Do we have a new form yet? What are we going to do when we get the new form, and different changes there? We're also going to talk about some things in regards to federal tax levies. So I want to make sure that you are aware that there's a lot that the IRS has not come out with guidance on yet because of the changes. So there's some changes that we know are going to have an impact on other things, but we don't know what it's going to look like. So I want to make sure that I give you those as well. So then that way, after today's webinar, you are fully prepared about any changes that are still coming. So then that way you can watch out for them. And federal tax levies is one of those areas where we anticipate a change coming, just not sure what it's going to look like yet. Then we're going to take some time and talk about fringe benefits. So there's several fringe benefits that either had changes or clarity situations. So transportation had some changes. Moving expenses is probably one of the most impactful to most organizations. Employee achievement awards, what do you need to know about the clarification that they put through with tax reform in regards to employee achievement awards? Legal settlements, not necessarily payroll changes, but corporate changes that could impact how you see your company do things differently. So I'm going to review that with you as well. Wage advances and repayments. So if you have overpayments, almost all of us do, what's the best way to handle those? There's some changes there. Equity compensation. So if your company is a publicly held company and you pay stock or restricted stock units, how are there going to be changes to that that's impactful for you to know? And then a lot of changes we forget about when there's federal changes. The states then go through and are married to federal taxation. So the states will have to go through and make some changes on their side as well. So what are those impacts and things for you to be aware of? And then we'll wrap things up today with a question and answer segment. So as you can see, we've got a lot to cover in a short period of time. So let's get started. So what is tax reform? So the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was signed into law on December 27th of 2017 by President Trump. They are effective, or otherwise what we know it as, based on what the news media and everybody calls it, is the tax reform bill. Tax reform is effective January 1st of 2018 through December 31st of 2025. A lot of us in the payroll field, when we heard this, were kind of thrown back by, how could we possibly implement new tax withholding tables and all these rule changes by January 1st? And well, we weren't. We had to wait for the IRS to come out with some guidance and new tax tables and things of that nature. So there's some question there because of the fact that it technically went into effect January 1st. And this is where you're going to find some of your challenges on a fringe benefits side as well. The first bit of guidance that we received was from the Internal Revenue Service, was based on Notice 1026, which was released on January 11th of 2018. Now, when I teach these webinars, I always give the guidance or the notice numbers that the IRS releases. So then that way, after this webinar, if you need additional backup when you're talking to your organizations about changes or updates, you can go to irs.gov and type in Notice 1036, and the information that we discussed today will come up. So be aware of, that's why I give you that much detail, so then that way you can pull that back up as you need it. By law, the IRS did encourage employers to implement these changes as soon as possible, but no later than February 15th, with no retro requirement. Now, this is based just on withholding. We start talking about some of the fringe benefits. You may have some retro occurrences that you may have to do, but from a payroll withholding perspective, you don't have to go back and refund individuals of what you withheld for federal withholding those first couple checks before you implemented the new table. So be aware of that. You do not have to do that. So what are the changes? So first of all, our tax tables before tax reform was set at 10%, 15, 25, 28, 33, 35, and 39.6%. Tax reform changed them to 10, 12, 22, 24, 32, 35, and 36%.